Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance Podcast. My name is Bree, and this is episode 284. In today's episode, I am joined by Kit Hawthorne, Harlequin Heartwarming author. Kit originally joined Sarah and I in episode 68. So again, an original OG here on the podcast. And that episode aired back in October of 2021. I will make sure to leave it linked in the show notes if you are new to the podcast and haven't had the opportunity to dig through some of the older episodes. I will make sure I dig that out of the archives and put that in the show notes for you guys to go back and enjoy. We chat a little bit about Kit's Cape Fear Legacy series, which is an historical series that she's been writing. It is available on Amazon. I will leave links to it down in the show notes as well, so you can look into it. And if it's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and one click away like I did. And then we talk about Hill Country Hero, which is book 8 in her Truly Texas series. I adore this series. It is one that I read out of order. I jumped into the series at book 2, which was Coming Home to Texas, and it is this amazing romance between Dahlia and Tony. But Hill Country Hero, my gosh, I think it has to be hands down one of the coolest, most gorgeous, and most springtime vibe cover that I have seen in a while. It is gorgeous. The premise to this book sounds like so much fun. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I miss the days, I would occasionally get 2 heartwarmings in my local Walmart, but I'm not seeing them anymore. But, luckily we still have the Harlequin website. So if there's, if you're interested in the title yourself, I will, of course, I always leave links to getting the book from Harlequin's website. So if it's something you're interested in, go ahead and snag your copy. Having heartwarming authors is always so special to me. If you are new here and you don't know, Heartwarming was the first Harlequin series that I ever read. And I didn't even really know what I was reading at the time. I was just kind of new to romance. I was new to blogging, and a friend was like, hey, there are some authors that are starting this new series. At the time, when I came into romance, reading small towns and cowboys, very Debbie Maycomber, Rayanne Thane, Maisie Yates. And so when I heard small town, I was like, yep, that's my bread and butter. This friend knew me. And so I got the first book in the Blackwell Brothers series from Heartwarming. And then once I really got into category, I was like, wait a minute, I have read one of these before. I've read this series that's part of the Heartwarming series. So it feels pretty full circle whenever I get heartwarming authors on, because that's literally where I got my start when it came to category before I really knew what I was doing. But yes, love Kit. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you check the show notes for all the links to all the things. If you would be so kind to rate and review the podcast, please do so. I appreciate it so much. It will help other category romance readers find the podcast. And as I always say, the more friends, the better. If there's anything that you personally want to hear, the email to the podcast is always in the show notes as well. I would love to hear from you. If you are a reader, I'm sure you're a category romance reader because you're listening to this podcast. If you would like to join me, come on, share some recommendations, or just talk about what you've been enjoying this year, whatever. Again, email is always in the show notes. I'd love to have you, especially with me about to have my first summer vacation as a teacher. The schedule will open up. I'd love to chat with some friends, all the things. But anyways, without further ado, here's my chat with the wonderful Kit Hawthorne. I hope you enjoy.
Got the garden in, got some new fruit trees planted. We haven't had any major weather disasters. My husband gave me a horse for Christmas. So I've been going on rides on the property and just enjoying the farm, and also writing a lot. Right, the other kind of writing and writing.
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
I'm sure that has to give you I don't know, just being outside, that peaceful kind of creative juices flowing.
Yeah, there's that, what do they call it? It's like a soft fascination. There's just an effect that being outdoors has on your mind, and it's a very good effect.
And horses seem so calming. My little nephew has cerebral palsy, and one of his therapies that he goes to is with horses. And so I'm like, they just have to, they're like these gentle giants.
Yeah. And you do have to, there's a lot that can go wrong, so you have to do things right. But um, and have people around who know what they're doing, and so yeah, there's that aspect of it too. Like you have to be alert.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing that it's this big, powerful creature that has been trained to be so gentle
So
and do
gentle.
the things that you tell it. And just learning the way their minds work and the way that they learn, it's kind of different from how we learn. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, you originally joined us on the podcast on episode 68 back
Mhm.
in October 2021. So
Yeah.
anyone who hasn't listened, I will leave that linked down below. You have to check it out. But if anybody hasn't listened to that episode yet, will you just share a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I live on a farm that's been in my husband's family since the 1850s. So our kids were the seventh generation of his family to live there. We currently have three horses on the place. My husband and daughter and I each have a horse, 10 chickens, a rooster, two and a half dogs. We have our two dogs, and then my daughter's dog comes over for doggy daycare, and 10 and a half cats.
Oh
There's
my
Yeah,
gosh.
they're all, outdoor cats.
Yeah.
They hunt, and
Nobody tells
they're
cats what to do, okay?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. They just living their own lives their own way. Uh, and I love living in the country. Our nearest neighbor is about a quarter mile away, and it's just so peaceful.
So peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I used to be in a band. I was in a
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
saw
was
that on your website, and I was like, "I don't remember us talking with Kid about being in a band before."
yeah, maybe we didn't. So it was a Celtic folk band, and we played a lot of traditional and original material. We played in coffee shops and pubs in the 90s and early 2000s, and the guys I was in the band with, we were in our church band too. So we'd be out late at Debellum, or some club somewhere, drag in at 2 a.m., and then get up in the morning and go to church and play with each other again there. It was a lot of fun.
You live a very fascinating life, from, like, band girl to, like, still trudging into church to now, like, to also, like, riding your horses, writing
Yeah.
romance novels, like, the dream.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Well, I was really happy to see, because I think one thing we touched on maybe in the last time you were here was, like, you seem to really love history,
Mhm.
and I was like, "What is this Cape Fear Legacy series that Kit has put out?" The covers are gorgeous. It
Mhm.
seemed like, from what it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I want you to talk all about it, but, like, you set it during a specific time period, but each
Yeah,
2 books are out, and I think 1 is coming out, but they
that's
follow
right.
different characters, so, like, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So Cape Fear is a river in North Carolina. Most people associate the name with that movie. I
Mhm,
think that,
mhm.
and but it's a region in North Carolina, and it's a region that saw a lot of important action in the American Revolutionary War. People don't often think of the South in the Revolution, but yeah, a lot of important stuff went on there. And I just love North Carolina anyway. I've got a lot of strong family ties to that area, and it was largely settled by Scottish immigrants, Highlanders, Lowlanders, Ulster Scots, and they were culturally diverse from each other. So that's always kind of sets the stage for things to happen when you have, and of course, a lot of other cultures in the area. So the Cape Fear Legacy series centers on a family in the Cape Fear area living on a farm and turpentine orchard. And there are six children in the family. So, like you said, I've done book one and book two. Book three is coming out, um, and potentially more to come after all that.
Creatively, how was it for you writing, an historical romance, like a historical series?
It was a lot of research, and I like to really immerse myself in the time period when I'm doing research and read way more than what actually makes it into the book, because you never know what little factoid is going to pop out at you and get the
Mhm.
story wheels turning. Of course, the downside to that is that now you know all these things and you feel compelled to put them in the story when maybe they don't relate. So you have to watch for that. And I end up cutting quite a lot that, is not pertinent to the story, but it's still there, beneath the surface. And I think it grounds a story to have all of that research behind it. I like to focus on slightly less well-known aspects of familiar historical events or periods. And then, so once you've been reading and thinking about a particular period a lot, then it just becomes natural to start asking those what if questions. What if this character were in that scenario and did this and that and interacted with those events, and sometimes actual historical figures.
So when you're focusing on like lesser known history or the time settings, you have touched on the research part of it, but that was my next question, is like, what does the research look like? Like if you are focusing especially on a time period that people may not, that kind of gets glanced over, or even like a location that kind of gets glanced over, it was there a lot kind of at your fingertips? Like what did that process look like for you?
Well, it was, like I said, a lot of reading, a lot of ordering books on Amazon.
Okay.
And then I
I
have,
love that. Yep.
yeah. One central thing, setting wise, for particularly the first book, Savannah Storm, was the longleaf pine,
Mhm.
which is a pine species in kind of the eastern seaboard of the United States, and it's a beautiful, enormous, gorgeous pine tree. And I read a whole book just about longleaf pine trees, and my daughter and I ended up visiting Wilmington, where the first book is set, Wilmington, North Carolina. Oh gosh, it's been close to a decade ago, because it was a long time ago that I started actually working on this series. And so the travel is nice. And then when I take my daughter with me, she's a photographer. So she can just take all the gorgeous pictures that I can refer back to later. And then I don't have to worry about that. We visited a swamp. They have carnivorous plants just growing out of the ground. It's the wildest thing.
Well, your next heartwarming also has a fun historical element in it as well. So, our heroine of Hill Country Hero is an historical author. So, can you tell us about Annalisa and is it Javi's
Javi, yeah.
romance?
Yeah. So this is a friends to lovers story, which is a trope I love because the characters already have so much history together. And in this case, Annalisa has a long-standing, looks hopeless, crush on Javi that he's just oblivious to. And he's not trying to lead her on. He just really has no idea. And so when the book starts, he isn't even around because he went to West Texas to work in the oil fields years ago. And so the book actually opens with Annalisa having a bonfire of all her Javi mementos. She's done with him, gonna put him behind her. I don't know if you've read Emma, Jane Austen's
Uh huh.
Emma. You know the scene where Harriet is like she's gonna put Mr. Elton behind her. And so she wants to get rid of these things. And they're all such like silly mementos. And Emma is just like, why do you even have this? This is just tangentially even related to him. So there's a bit of that because her mementos are all things that like he didn't even know that they were having a moment, but in her mind they were, and so she saved all this stuff. So they burn it in the fire. She's with her friend Eliana, and Eliana's like, "Yep, burn it. You know, get rid of it, move on." So they do all that, and it's an emotionally draining experience. There's a little alcohol involved. It takes hours, and then it's done. She's finished. She goes home, and she's ready the next morning, going to start her new life without Javi. And just as she's going to bed, she gets a text from Javi saying he's coming home. So now she's got a choice. Is she going to hold fast to that resolution because she's had false hope with him before? And so she tries. She does her best.
Yeah. So was it thinking about Emma that inspired the story, or what? Or did it start with that scene?
I think it actually started with I've been hinting about these characters for a while now because they've been showing up in other people's books as minor characters. Really, Annalisa goes all the way back to the first book in the series, Hill Country Secret, because her first book, like you said, she's a historical author and she wrote a book of ghost stories. And that ghost story book plays a role in the plot of Hill Country Secret. So
Okay.
I always thought I would come back to her.
To come, give her hers. Yeah.
And then Javi first gets a mention in book 3, and they just show up as minor characters in other people's love stories, just kind of facilitating things. And also Javi's father, Mr. Mendoza, he's the kind of character that he's loud and extroverted, and he's what I think of as a catalyst character because he makes things happen. He'll just say what nobody else will say and just get things going. So he gets a little more attention in this one too. And I've always been interested in just old things, old cars, old buildings.
The
so
old
there is
car
that
on the cover of this one is gorgeous.
Yes.
I'm like, I love it. It just pops the way that they put it all together. It's stunning.
Yeah, and that is the actual car. With the art department did a nice job there. I sent them a picture of what kind of car it is, and they nailed it. And Texas history is full of just a lot of colorful episodes because Texans just culturally are so contrary, and they just do things. And there's this one episode in Texas history where some of the soldiers attacked this convoy that they thought, and I don't know why they thought this, but they thought it was carrying some royalist silver from Mexico. So they attacked that convoy, and the Mexican soldiers left their pack animals behind, and the Texans open up the saddlebags, and they're stuffed full of grass. So these poor guys were just trying to get fodder for their horses. That's all that was. So that's called the grass fight. And I think they've actually done some reenactments of it, which I think is pretty funny. But so that's one of those episodes that I read about it. I thought, that's just the most Texan thing to do, obviously. But what if there really were some royalist silver and we just didn't know about it? So that was kind of the genesis for the historical aspect of the plot in that book.
Well, that may be it then, because the next question I wanted to ask was I love getting kind of behind the scenes details for when you all are writing these books. Was there a song you were listening to, or a show that you watched, or you had to take a walk because you were stuck on a scene? Is there anything special you can tell us about the writing of this book that kind of kept you going or kept you in the story?
Well, I always think that it's attractive for a man to be competent working with his hands. Just building and repairing things, right? And they put on those tool belts. It's like, wow. So my husband is that way, and he doesn't work on engines a whole lot, but in kind of an ad hoc way, he does. And he'll watch a YouTube video and manage to fix something, which is great. It just saves us a lot of money. And so Javi is a mechanic, and that involved some research because I don't know how to restore a classic car. So I visited a classic car museum and got a tour from the owner, and Mendoza Classic Cars ended up loosely based on that place. And I also have a very good friend who knows a lot about classic cars and has done these restorations, and he's a writer himself. So, and his name is David, and he and his wife, I actually dedicated that book to them. They've been friends with me and my husband for years. So a lot of the time when I was getting stuck, I would just send an email to David. Ask, how do you do this or that? And because he's a writer himself, he could answer the question and then also point out some other things that I maybe didn't know to ask.
That is
And
really sweet.
and those lines of those classic cars are just so gorgeous. I mean, there just isn't styling like that anymore. And it's romantic.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, are you currently working on anything that you can tell us about?
Well, I'm in the editing stage with book 3 of the Cape Fear Legacy series.
Okay.
So, book 1 was Savannah Storm, book 2 is Carolina Crossing, and book 3 is Trees and Trail. We'll see if I can keep up the 2-word alliterative titles for another 3 books.
I think you can do it. You can do it.
So Trees and Trail is set in the final months of the American Revolution, with not a lot of fighting going on anymore, and it kind of looks like it's a done deal, but it's not quite. The war could still be lost. And so this book has a conspiracy, a couple of murders, a war going on, obviously, some encrypted messages, and a hero with amnesia.
Oh, this has got a lot going on. I mean, I was sold at like encrypted messages and conspiracies, but okay. Oh my God. So is that like the next book that's coming from you, or do you have anything else that's scheduled to come out?
Trees and Trail will come out in June the 20th. And after that, I'm actually going to take some time to catch up on some work around the house. I've been on a really tight production schedule for the past several months, and I need to paint some woodwork and stuff. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that, just getting up and just doing a bunch of physical tasks. And then after that, I'm going to go to work on a contemporary romance called The Stand-In. That's unrelated to my other books. So,
ooh, I'm so intrigued by this title.
It's very, very different from the other stuff I've been working on lately. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. You don't have to tell us much about The Stand-In because I want to be excited, but like, how did it come to you? Was it like just because you've been doing like these amazing small town, heartwarmings, and then you have this historical series. So how did this happen?
It's actually that's kind of interesting to think about. I'm glad you asked that. You can forget like where the actual inception for something was, because it could be buried pretty far back. I was actually it was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was just a little throwaway line of Tony Stark saying, "You have reached the life model decoy of Tony Stark." When I think Phil is trying to deal with him, and how Tony Stark is, he's just not doesn't have much patience for administrative stuff. So he's pretending that he's an android so that he doesn't have to deal stuff that just bores him. He's this genius that just doesn't want to deal with paperwork or interacting with people very much. So that just got me thinking. And then, of course, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did a whole season where there were life model decoys, and they were very efficient at imitating the people that they were based on. And I think I just started thinking, well, wouldn't that be something if you did have a very lifelike android who could just take your place at social functions and work meetings, and then you could just stay home and do whatever. Yeah. So that was kind of this book does not feature any androids, but that was what got me what ultimately led to the plot of this book.
Yeah, such a writer brain. What if? Yeah, that's where it starts. Well, can you tell everybody where we can keep up with you online?
I've got my website at kithawthorne.com, which I think has links to my socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I have a TikTok account, but I'm not on there a lot. I've got some Sunday snippets, and Teaser Tuesdays is mostly what I use that for. I also have my newsletter, and there's a sign up form for that on my website. And I'm always happy to get new ARC readers. There's a form for that on the website as well.
Well, I will have links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us yet again and for all of, the production that you've been doing. But I hope you really do enjoy your time off.
Oh, thank
But
you.
we will be patiently waiting for you to come back. So, selfish reader. So,
Oh.